Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 143 of the Cognitive Podcast. Please remember that your comments are always welcome. You can comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can comment on our group on Ravelry. In the meantime, the warm thanks department, well, again, it's kind of about CFR 2023, isn't it? As always, I want to thank all the people who are supporting it, including the Etsy folks and Yarnopoly. I'm pretty pleased right now because Yank Your Yarn came through, one of the Etsy stores, and she put her stuff in the mail for us, so I'm looking forward to seeing what she is sending for our goodie bags. So, anything. And by the way, if anybody wants to donate anything else to goodie bags, I know we had a hint about buttons, I'm just saying. But I feel sort of clueless about what you put on a button. I don't know. But at any rate, if anybody wants to donate to the goodie bags, if you want to donate raffle prizes, certainly. We can always just raffle things off. If you win something in the raffle and you want it, that's great. If you don't want it, I'm sure you can trade or give it away. But by all means, you never know. And this is a nice way to redistribute things where you may be done with it and someone else may be really glad to get it. So thank you, those of you who are contributing. Also, I guess I'm getting a little bit annoying with the class thing, because it really bugs me that I don't have a clear plan the way I used to. This is partly because we have not heard anything from our really wonderful teacher. We had Mindy, who came every year and taught a whole bunch of classes, and I think all of us are kind of harking back to that. I know her daughter, Hannah, has been following me, so I'm sort of surprised I haven't heard from Mindy and Jamie, but I haven't, which is a little bit sad. So I think that's part of the reason I feel a lot less structured about the classes. So thank you for your patience with that. However, Steffi Joe and Brenda Castile, being the troopers that they are, came through with some really good stuff about that. And to put it bluntly, go look at the information thread on Ravelry. And the link is there under the word here, as in all the information is here. But go to the info thread and ask if you want a specific class or something that interests you. And I mean, it can be anything, because we have an incredible multi-craftual bunch of people coming. So, if you're interested in a certain class, a technique, a skill, entrelac, intarsia, spinning, knitting, weaving, anything, the sky's the limit. Go ask for any class that interests you, and we'll see if we can get something together. And that, of course, is an indirect way of thanking Steffi Joe, who basically said that. And her quote is there. I know there are a lot of us that are multi-craftual and can teach all kinds of techniques. Perhaps we should have a thread for folks to list techniques they're interested in learning. And then anyone competent in that skill could set up a time to do a little education session. Yes, and I would say, please, anything you want to learn, go over to the information thread on Ravelry and put in a comment. I'd love to hear it. Brenda jumped in with that. Brenda, of course, is a really talented designer, but she said, I'd also be happy to teach or demonstrate various techniques. And she suggested mattress stitch for seaming, grafting, or Kitchener stitch. Her favorite cast on that does not involve a long tail. And easy intarsia. There's some goodies. So if you're interested in any of these, please go over to the information thread and put your oar in. Let us know what you're thinking. And right underneath this in the show notes, you will see in bold, Cognitive Fiber Retreat 2023. All info is right here, and here is a link, and that is the link to the thread. So go and have a look. And in the meantime, let us not forget, Saturday, November 11th, 2023, 9 to 5. Those are the time and hours for the event room, the Valencia room at the Courtyard by Marriott in Valencia. However, I'm pretty sure the party's going to start Friday night. At least for me it is, because I've got the hotel room Friday and Saturday night. Typically at a CFR, since it's been a while, I'm going to let you know, we would all get together on Friday and everybody would go out together and we would get together in the evening and spin or knit or whatever we do. And then the next day, the real fun goes into action when everybody shows up who didn't make it Friday night. So again, this has always been a one-day retreat that has taken a whole weekend. Oh yes, what did we do Sunday? Well, I think one year the group went to the llama farm and went to a winery one year. But also we always got together Sunday morning at a local breakfast place, anybody who wanted to come, and we would just sort of debrief about how it went. Really, I think this happened because nobody wants the party to end. I certainly never did. So there you go. That's the option. There will probably be a Sunday brunch. We have a terrific brunch restaurant, Eggs and Things. And I would love for us to be able to go over there. But we have a few of them. We've got Egg Plantation a little farther out. Eggs and Things is going to be really close to where we are. And I'll keep my eyes open for anything else that happens. Okay, in the meantime, I realized last week I teased about a new vendor that Laura from Dizzy Blonde had suggested, and I have done nothing about it. So be patient, I will get back to it. It's been kind of a rock and roll week at work and in my private life, but off we go. You can see a picture of the beautiful sea glass colorway made for us for this year by Dizzy Blonde Studio. Hey, Laser Sheep, come on, I know you're doing a unique colorway for us. Give me a picture so I can promote it. And you probably already know the mini skein swap is on. 25 gram mini skeins, please. And the goodie bags, we're slowly starting to collect those. And I mentioned there, Yank Your Yarn is coming through for us. So please go over to her Etsy site and look at her very cool stuff. So there we go. That is everything you need to know right now about CFR 2023. And at this point, it's only reasonable to say, hey, Gemma, but what is on your hooks and needles? Well, nothing is finished, and that hurts because I meant to block the lane splitter. The lane splitter, I have done the whole rectangle, which is not that big a deal, but it took me a long time. And it needs desperately to be blocked out because I did it to 42 inches and I really need it to be 44. But I wanted to have some room for growth in blocking. At the same time, I did not want to make it too big. I didn't want it just hanging off me. So, sure, that was the plan for this weekend. Did I do it? No, because the sky was falling. Not a real problem. But a lot of things were in play. Let's put it that way. I had a lot of balls in the air as my juggling life goes forward. So it's sad too because I'm looking at it, sitting right next to me. It's beautiful, big old rectangle. And next to it I have wound up the skein of cotton yarn to do the waistband because once I had it all pulled together and I read the instructions, I decided, yes, I want to block it, seam it into a big cylinder, and then I want to do the waistband on it. And that will handle the problems I was having last week. Turned out, I thought the thing was going to be way too long for me. Actually, it's a really good length. So cross your fingers, I need to come back to the lane splitter. I hate to have it sitting here unfinished. However, that didn't stop me. So let's talk about the other things. First, in the stash toss, 8 skeins of yarn in since January 1st, 2023 versus 43 skeins of yarn out of the stash. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. So, I mean, we have a net using here of 35 skeins that are out of my stash so far this year. I also started to make shorts. I decided to sew the last 2 swaths of fabric I had to make Simplicity 8558, the shorts I've been wearing all summer. I felt these things were too wide in the legs, but the waist was good. Well, you know what? I'm way over that. I love the things. If you're going to make Simplicity 8558, you do need to use as much waistband as they tell you to. They say 3 strips of 1/2 inch elastic and you make 3 separate channels in the waist. And that really matters. It pulls them in. So Anyway, I have 2 pairs of these and then 1 pair of an older pattern, and I like these better. And I'm wearing them right now, in fact, and I'm wildly happy with these. However, there was a little problem. My beautiful, trusty 30-year-old white sewing machine went a little wacky doodle in the feed dogs just as I was finishing the waistband on the dark blue pair. Now, I was sort of sewing these in tandem. So I cut them out by stacking the fabric and cutting out 2 different pairs of shorts at the same time, which was fun. And then I marked them. And then I said, well, let's get all the big pieces attached to each other so they're not flying around and I don't lose anything if I get delayed. Boy, am I glad I did that. So the dark blues are really completely sewn together. They just need the channels for the waistband elastic and the elastic threaded through, and they need their legs hemmed. The purple set, well, everything is together, but the waistband is not attached. So that's where we are. So my poor machine, I tried disassembling it myself and cleaning it and could not figure out what's going with the feed dogs. So I'm just going to take it over to the sewing machine store and let them work on it. So I am stalled on those 2 pairs of shorts, which is a bit of a bummer, but we have a lot of summer left here in Southern California, believe me. Below that, you can see a picture of the lane splitter rectangle. It's not fully extended, but I was so relieved. I finished it probably right after I finished recording last episode. And I'm so happy to be through that. But again, that only took 2 skeins of yarn out of the stash because the others I had started beforehand. Anyway, so I'm really happy. But now we have to get to the place where I soak that for a while and let it stretch out. And I have to really measure it on the floor to get the width I want. And, just measure it out so that it's even in a really good squared up rectangle. No big deal. I just have to make the time, and it has not been working for me this weekend. But I thought I really need something kind of mindless to work on. And so I began the Llama Love sweater. And you can see a picture there. I'm working from the neck down. I like the neckline on this a lot. This is by Megan Reagan, alias Bad Wolf Girl Knits. She designs wonderful sweaters. There's only one problem. She tends to overload the color work. And what I mean by that is she just keeps it going, and you divide for the body because it's a top-down sweater, and then she has even more under the armpits. And that's great, but this particular sweater, when I looked at most of the finished objects, and there were only 19, I didn't like it because it has a way of setting a rather unflattering band of color work right across the most expansive part of a woman's chest if you are endowed like a mature woman, as I am, a woman who's had children and nursed them. Yeah, it doesn't look right. It just looks a little too weird to have llamas treading across that part of the posterior. So I thought about that, and I went in and I just looked at color work sweaters with yokes. And I realized, yeah, most of the yokes don't go down that far at all. So I love this because it's got llamas. I've already done the very top repeated pattern is little hearts, followed by little blue coins. And now I'm on the llamas, and it's about 30 rows of llama. And under that, I've realized I'm going to stop and probably do just another row of the red hearts, and I may alternate blue hearts in with them to pick up that blue again. Or I may do them down by the bottom, just above the ribbing for the waistband. But I really want to not have the kind of awkward symbols stretched over my, shall we say, womanly breadth. That's not where I want people staring at me, okay? I'm just going to put it plainly. I have to tell you, I am doing this in Lisa Souza's Superwash Merino worsted weight. This stuff is unbelievable. It comes in skeins of 500 yards. That's the first wonderful thing. And it's a great price for 500 yards. It's, I forget the price actually. I want to say it's $50. But it's a really good price for that. If you do the math compared to like a 220 yard skein. But also this stuff is like working with butter. It is so soft and smooth and just flows through your hands gently. I love it. My contrast colors are in Knit Picks in Mighty Stitch because that's what the original designer used for the entire sweater. And I like it. I actually like the Mighty Stitch, even though I think it's 50% acrylic and 50% merino, but I like it. I actually like the Mighty Stitch. It's got nice definition. It's holding the color well. The contrast is good, but I am deeply in love with Lisa's Superwash Merino in worsted weight. It's coming out great. The other thing I wanted to say was, to do this, I decided to do the German short rows. Now, those of you who know me well enough know, when I knit a sweater, I usually knit just a plain sweater in worsted weight in the brick pattern. And the brick starts with below the collar. You add the collar later, and you go side to side, and you're not knitting in the round. And when you get to a certain width, then you connect and you start knitting in the round. That is one way to do the neckline of your sweater so that you have a sort of raised neckline in the back instead of having the whole neck drag down because you didn't do a raised back of the neck section. Wrap and turn short rows, or in this case German short rows, are also options you can use. And that is what Megan the designer says go off and do those if you like. Do any kind of short rows you want to do. Well, so I found a video on YouTube from the excellent Pearl Soho on German short rows. So this sweater, and I believe all of Megan's sweaters, start by doing the collar in rib on very small needles, which is something I've never done on quite this small a needle. And then you switch to size 7s. Another thing I don't do, I tend to do my winter sweaters on at least size 9s in worsted weight. And I'm getting gauge very nicely. That is, it's just a little bit below gauge, but once it is blocked, it's clearly going to stretch and make gauge quite nicely. And I am really liking this. So I put the link to Pearl Soho's video on German short rows in the show notes under the pictures of me showing off the very beginnings of the color work on this glorious sweater. So I cannot wait to finish the color work, because I really started this because I want popcorn knitting. I want something really boring that I can just go around and around and around and around. So we'll see how that works, shall we? Meanwhile, the Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery, no, because again, I wanted something simple. But you can see me wearing the latest iteration of the simple scallop shawl in crochet. And the yarn is Oink Pigments Disco, which is a sock weight, a fingering weight. But it's got glitter, that's hence the disco. And the colorway is Knit E-Mart. And I have to tell you, if you do the simple scallops, on about the first 6 or 7 rows, you're going to be tearing your hair out, cursing and swearing, going, this makes no sense, how can you possibly do this? But you have to hang on, because you have to get to the part where it says repeat rows 5 through 7. And suddenly it becomes easy and you get it and you don't have to keep looking at the chart. And I will tell you, if you're going to do the simple scallop shawl, you really want to work on your ability to read a chart for crochet, because it makes it a lot easier than just reading the written out part. It's just much easier when you see the schematic in the crocheting pattern language. When you look at that thing, you will get it right away. So I highly recommend this shawl. I haven't made one in donkey's years. I keep going back to the one from Lion Brand, whose name is escaping me. So I wanted to go do something different. And then I just realized, oh, this is so phenomenally beautiful. The other thing, this thing blocks out huge. If you use up the whole skein of sock yarn, the typical 400-something yard skein, this thing is enormous. So I love this. So that is the simple scallops. There's a picture of me. I am not even at half the ball of yarn at that point, and you can see how big it is, and it's unblocked. It really stretches when you block it. You block it half to death. I am not spinning yet, so no dizzy blondes. This probably explains my sewing machine's problem, because I have a huge heap of Minerva fur sitting there, but I am not spinning yet. So on to the strategy. I'm still running around in Poor Richard's Almanac by Benjamin Franklin, because he's really pushing me into the thinking zone, and I'm enjoying it. And he really is very much about mindfulness. I don't know if he would call it that, but at any rate, this week's wise saying is, look before or you'll find yourself behind. I read that at first, like, look before you leap, and then sort of stopped and said, but is that really what it is? And actually, I think it's one of these great statements of proactivity. Look before, or you will find yourself behind. That is, think about what you need to get done and do it before, because you don't want it to reach the crisis state. And if it does and you don't finish things, you are then behind. So I think the idea here is very much about what we had before when we talked about Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Chapter 5. Chapter 1 is about proactivity. Chapter 5 is about dividing all your tasks along 2 axes. One axis is important or not important. The other is urgent or not urgent. And according to Mr. Covey, crisis is when something is important and urgent. And every day you get up and you have to do those things right away. So a crisis is not necessarily disaster crisis. For example, I get up in the morning and I have patients starting at 10 a.m. Technically, those patients have appointments, so they are technically urgent and important. You have to do them right away. So I just do those, and I do them in their scheduled time. But according to Covey, the rest of the time you want to work on the things that are important but not urgent. That is, you're being proactive. Start projects that are not yet due, but just get them going. And I think that would be what Ben Franklin is talking about with look before. Be proactive. Look in advance at what you have to do and try to get started on it. Otherwise, it will slip into that other category that you usually want to avoid where you can, of being urgent and important. So the proactive block in this graph is when you say something is important but it's not urgent. So according to Stephen Covey's recommendations, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, to make this clear, he says you get up every day and you have to do right away everything that is urgent and important. But after that, you want to look at all the things that are coming up in your life, and you want to find out which things are important but not urgent, and then you want to work on those a little bit every day. And that way, you don't fall behind on things like schoolwork or studying or tasks that are due. And I think that's Ben Franklin's logic. Look before. Look at things that are coming up that are not due yet. And in parentheses, Ben would say, do a little bit of those. And then you get to the end of it, or you will find yourself behind. You'll fall behind. So look before, or you'll fall behind. The other interesting thing about this is it works in the other direction. When you say look before, what you're actually doing is you're resisting impulse. So I say, oh, I have all this free time today. I could drive all the way into LA and go to a yarn store and blah, 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 blah. And I could. Now, in Covey's model, what is that? Well, it's not urgent and it's not really important. I don't need more yarn. But I have free time. I could do something that's not urgent and not important. But also what I'm doing in that moment is I'm going for an impulse. Oh, I just want to go buy yarn. I'll feel so much better. Okay, so that's the impulse. Now, instead, if I say, oh, I'm so lucky I have this time off, I could get ahead on a few of my tasks, that is going to redirect me away from following impulses. And I have to say, I'm not hugely impulsive. I have those tendencies like any normal human, I think. But it is really nice to keep yourself on track, because when you resist impulse, you're kind of resisting spending money you don't have, or wasting time, or skipping over things you should do, like blocking your skirt or something. Now, actually, this weekend I was resisting impulse. I just had a few too many things that moved to the front burner, that moved from my not important, not urgent, and important but not urgent category. They fell into the urgent important without my realizing it. And this is one reason, though, again, why you want to follow Dr. Franklin's advice. That the reason I'm not in a disaster mode is because my stuff that was important but not urgent, I was keeping up with it. So this weekend, when a lot of things came out of the blue at us, I really had the time to work on it without flipping out, because I was keeping myself up on my other projects. The other thing I did was, frankly, I used my self-soothing, so that's why there is so much now of the Llama Love sweater. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Franklin. On to the fluffy books. Well, the Bridgerton books. I finished the third volume that encompasses the stories, the 8 books about the original Bridgerton kids and their incredible mother, Violet. And then in that third book, there was one of the prequels, and that is Because of Miss Bridgerton, and that is about a previous generation of Bridgerton. And in that generation, the Bridgertons and the Rokesbys are buddies because they have neighboring estates. And so it's all about how their kids are getting together, and it's very, very sweet. So I'm now on that prequel series, the Rokesbys. I just got the second book, whose name I don't even remember, but I'm still working my way through the Bridgerton books. They're just what I need. They're a really nice antidote to doom scrolling and all that. They're pleasant, they're light. And what I really like is you do like the characters. You don't have anti-heroes. You don't have, she's a problematic girl, but we're going to fix her when she meets the right guy. You don't have all that garbage. Or vice versa, the problematic guy who meets the right girl and all that. And it's just very straightforward and simple. It's mental popcorn. I've been enjoying it. So I'm just working on the Bridgerton and Rokesby series. Something I really like, the wristband pincushion. As you can see in that picture, I'm wearing it. And behind me, you can see me cutting out the stacked shorts fabrics, the 2 fabrics I used to cut out you can only see the dark blue on the top, but the purple's underneath it. And I immediately realized why I love this thing, because I didn't have to haul my big tomato pincushion into the living room while I was pinning. I just went out there and was cutting and had this on and said, ooh, I've got a dish of pins, but no pincushion. The funny thing about this is I have worked out of just a big squashy pincushion for so much of my life without doing this, which was obvious, getting one of these wrist numbers or making one of the wrist numbers. So often I would be wearing this and forget I had it on and be looking around for pins. Nonetheless, I love this. This thing was like $4 off the rack of sewing notions at Joann's. Most of the time it's on sale in some form anyway, and I deeply, deeply enjoy it. So there you can see it. It's an action shot. It's on my wrist above my smartwatch with actual pins in it, and it is positioned in front of where the pins are going. So this is just the simple wrist pin cushion, and I loved it. The tea tastings, haven't done anything new this week. I really don't know why, but I did want to tell you the Plum Deluxe Picard Earl Grey, which has the pecan overtones, which is a terrible pun on his name, I'm sure. I did not like it when I first tasted it. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't good. Well, and now I've started to like it. It's started to grow on me. I don't know if I'm going to reorder it, because pecan, it's just a little too weird the way this tea smells. It almost smells like the insanely wonderful Lady Grey. They also have a thing called, I think it's Mindful Morning Earl Grey, which is Lady Grey without the lemon peel in it. It's just orange peel. No lemon peel and orange peel like Lady Grey. And the Mindful Morning Earl Grey is phenomenal if you can't get to Lady Grey. But the Picard Earl Grey, that smell is just a little strange. That it almost smells like the Lady Grey, but there is that pecan twist, and it's a little weird. But I actually am getting to like it. It kind of grows on you. And the other one that has grown on me is the strawberry, I think originally it was, now they're calling it strawberry and cream black, I think, but it used to be strawberry and rose petal cream or something like that when I bought it. That stuff is not an Earl Grey, but it's really good too, in a whole different direction. It's just a little tangy, and it's interesting in the morning when you need that caffeine hit. On to the blather. Well, there is a picture of my girl dog sitting pretty and smiling at the camera. And I love the way they photograph, because you really see who they are. They both photograph true to life. So you can see Captain with that kind of mellow, relaxed smile of relief, like everything is good. Whereas Queenie just looks mischievous. And she always does. She always has that twinkle about her, which is one of the reasons when I saw her first puppy picture, I said, that's my dog, because she has the most expressive eyes, like our late lamented Eleanor. So there they are, sitting pretty. The reason that picture is there is Queenie does another thing that Baron used to do. She raids the pantry. So right after this picture, I found her in the pantry trying to drink olive oil. Yes, olive oil. I have no explanation for it except there was a big stain on the right side of her muzzle right behind the black of her nose. Olive oil. So we do have to lock the pantry as we did for Baron. I installed a little slide lock on it because Baron would just open it and roam through it. And Baron would eat anything. He would eat onions, anything, liner garlic. She's not that bad, but it is a bit much. So there are my girls sitting pretty. We are still working on getting Queenie to calm down in the house. Watercolors, still haven't done much in Andrea Nelson's teachable class, but I did want to show you the squiggle drawings and paintings I worked on last week. I talked about them last week. I showed you, in last week's show notes, I showed you the ocean version, but on the left, you can see that is Andrea Nelson's original idea. A third of the way down the page, you just draw squiggly lines from right to left and left to right. Okay, if they intersect, and where they intersect, you'll have sharp angles, and she says, take your marker and curve those. She's using a medium width Sharpie. I'm using a fine point, so it looks a little bit different. But I really like this, and so I did it again because the first time I did it, I told you last week, my husband wouldn't let me do anything to it. He asked me to sign it, date it, and he kept it because he just liked it as a minimalist object. The second one, I did the seascape. So in the squiggles, you had ocean, and then the half circle above it was the sun. Well, this was my other inspiration, to do it as a mountain range in the moonlight. And so you can see the before and after there. I had immense fun with this. Some of it worked and some of it didn't, but I have to say it was really interesting to work on the depth of the mountain ranges by their color, the light coming from the moon and the way it changes the colors of the mountains, the sky. I just love experimenting with skies in purples and blues. I have really fallen for this. And just leaving blank space, negative space in the form of that moon and the mountaintops with the snow. I did take my Sharpie and give some lines of direction and depth to the snow-capped mountains if you look closely. And I experimented with putting a little tiny body of water at the bottom, a little river, not the most successful. I am, however, deeply in love with the red-brown at the very bottom. I just love me some browns and grays and the fading effects. I really have enjoyed playing with that. So there's that in the watercolors. I also did a slice of watermelon. This is supposed to be a really easy project, and yes and no, but I like my slice. What I don't like is the green came out too regular. No matter how I tried to get it irregular, the minute it just dried into a stripe. So I may go back and redo the watermelon, but the watermelon's a lot of fun. It's a very easy, straightforward project. As you can see, it's really only red and green and then black, and you mess with what color variations you can get from having your paper wet, having your paper dry, etc., using a wet brush on wet paper, a dry brush on wet, and so on. So I had a lot of fun with the watermelon slice. In the meantime, we are still working out in the garden. I have had to give up on the Shasta daisy and, surprisingly, the stone crop, which I really thought would be great because it's an evergreen. The rabbits just ate them to the ground. Shasta daisy's trying to come back, but just the fact that the rabbits are enjoying it so much shows me that we're not going to get Shasta daisies. But what I did do was I took advantage of the late summer sale on perennials at Great Garden Plants because they took a big chunk off the cost of the perennials. And then if you went over 100, they gave you free shipping. That got me 9-quart containers of the milkweed I wanted. And the really nice thing, you can tell them to ship it whenever you want. So mine is not being shipped until September 28th, which means it will be cooler here and they will have a better chance of surviving. What's really going on? I put those plants out, really trying to keep it down to 1 or 2 per plant, because I wanted to see what would survive here, what the rabbits would eat, all of that. And the answer is the milkweed's doing well. The hyssop is doing well. The trumpet vines are doing well. So that's what we're specializing in. So I just decided I'm going to go crazy on the milkweed because I want to fill up the spaces where I put the milkweed. And so I ordered 9 more of them, and they will come in September. Do be aware that you will be charged immediately, but for those prices, I was really happy. These things were down from like $17 a pot, and I paid a lot less than that. So I'm very, very pleased. I really want to see if I can kickstart perennials along the side of the house in the front. And I really want them to be pollinators. I want bright colors. I want to bring in the hummingbirds and the bees and any other pollinator I can drag in there. So you can see a picture from the ad of what I'm getting for the milkweed plants. You can also see that our crazy experiment on the windowsill, the buckwheat, the California buckwheat, which looks like little tiny poofs, and the sacred datura, which was big. You can see the picture of those. The sacred datura, I gave it rooting powder, and instead of rooting, what did it do? It blossomed twice. But you can see, look at that big horn of a blossom. That sacred datura has the most gorgeous, big, thick blossoms. So, you're supposed to nip those off so the plant doesn't use its energy to blossom, but I couldn't bring myself to. And none of them are rooting yet. It's been over a week and no little root fibers yet. So we're probably going to give this another week, and if they don't root, I'm going to have to say farewell and try something else. I really don't know why they didn't root. I've doused them with root powder twice. I've been refreshing the water when they droop. They're facing into the sun, but no go. So we will see. It's not like I can't find these plants and sort of dig them out from the side of the road, roots and all, and relocate them. But I was trying to just leave them where they were and take cuttings. Oh well, we'll see how that works. Meanwhile, on the calendar, of course, the Cognitive Fiber Retreat 2023 is Saturday, November 11th at the Courtyard by Marriott in Valencia, California. We are not taking money at the door. This is a closed event. So if you have not paid me, payment is due by September 1st. After that, you can get bumped from the list. Those of you who are hanging out with people who are not listeners, but they wanted to come to this, guild members, knitting groups, whatever, please tell them that. Please make sure they know. Because I have some people on the list that I'm deeply concerned that they don't realize that they have to pay in advance. Okay, but I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. Let's move on to the idea that the Evolution of Psychotherapy Conference will be in Anaheim, California, at the Convention Center right on top of Disneyland, December 12th through 17th of 2023. In the meantime, starting September 1st, I no longer work on Saturdays. I will have a normal weekend like the rest of you and normal 3-day holidays. And then I will work Monday through Friday. That's worked really well. In total, 11 of my patients were disrupted by this. And I would say we have resolved that one group of 5. I think we've got 2 left on the original 6 from Saturday that we're still struggling to place. So that's all going very well. It's been stressful, but it's working out well. Fortunately, I have many craftual things to do. So Minerva gets the last word, and that is a trick of the light, or is she in her blue period as an artist? I don't know. She was sitting on our living room floor, and I just took a picture of her because she was sitting there looking very self-possessed. When I saw the picture, I was stunned because her highlights came out this amazing electric blue. I have no idea how she did this. Honest to Pete, I thought she was sitting there with her typical gray and black highlights, but no. This reminds me of her forebear, the late lamented Guinevere, who I had back in my 30s. Guinevere got tired of her eye color, so she changed it midlife from pumpkin orange to lemon yellow. Nobody ever could explain it to me, but that's who Guinevere was. Apparently Minerva's working on these tricks too. She has Gwen's personality in many ways, including the love of the brush and being brushed. And she's also got the medium coat. So Minerva, I don't know. Is it a trick of the light? Is she doing it on purpose? Or is she signaling an artistic change? Who can really know? But there she is with blue lights. That is not a filter. It's very weird. Below that, all the resources that you can go look at. And I think I'm just going to go to the same old of everybody. We are a community. So please remember, when you care for yourself, you care for others, but when you care for others, you also care for yourself. So on that happy note, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.